Alright everyone, so today we're going to be doing another general election matchup between incumbent President Donald Trump and presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden. So if you like to see more videos like this, please like the video down below and subscribe to the channel. I usually make these Donald Trump and Joe Biden predictions. I'll probably make one every month until we get up to election day. I also make Senate gubernatorial predictions and also swing state analysis videos as well. So if you'd like to check those out, there'll be links in the description to those as well. So let's drive right into it. The blue states marked on the map are the states that Joe Biden will win by 15 points or more in any scenario. These are Democratic safe states. And the red states on the map are states that Donald Trump will win by 15 points or higher. And of course, the gray states are going to be the states we fill in. These are states that are somewhat in play to some capacity, although not really, as we'll see later on. But these are states that are basically not safe. So we're going to go west to east here. First, we're going to start off with the state of Nevada. If we go back to the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton only won the state of Nevada by 2.4 percentage points. If we go county by county, she won Clark County by around 11 points, which is the most populous county in Nevada, home to Las Vegas. And she only won Washoe County by around a point or so. So these are the only blue counties in Nevada. The rest, geographically speaking, Nevada's very red. Of course, you could say that with a lot of Democratic states. But these are the counties that really matter. So if Donald Trump really wants to win the state of Nevada, he's going to have to at least get 43 or 44% out of Clark County. He's going to have to seriously improve his margins there. He's also going to have to count on lower Democratic turnout than there was in 2016. How likely is that? Probably unlikely. However, it's still very possible that he does have a path to win the state. This is very close, and as we're going to see in a second when we look at the other elections, Nevada has actually trended very right-wing compared to previous ones. We can look at the change from 2012. Every single county in Nevada trended towards Donald Trump. Now, that doesn't always mean, that is not a guarantee to any stretch that, oh, Donald Trump has the state of Nevada in the bag. If we look at Clark County, for instance, the Democratic margin slightly decreased by around a point. The Republican margin decreased by just a 0.1% from 2012 to 2016. But we look at the Democratic margin, it decreased substantially. Democrats got around 20,000 more votes. Well, that's more like 12,000 or 13,000. But they got over 10,000 more votes, but Donald Trump increased his vote share by a lot more in Clark County. So if anything, it's slightly trending to the Republicans. That in no way means that Clark County is going to be a red county by any stretch. It's going to stay a blue county. Probably always will stay that way. However, if Republicans can break around 43%, I'd say that Donald Trump is probably in good shape to win the state. Washoe County as well. Republicans actually lost some ground here in Washoe County, but overall, when we compare the vote size, Hillary Clinton did increase her votes more, but overall the county trended slightly to the Republicans. So if we look at counties overall, all of Nevada trending to the Republicans. If we go back to 2012, we could see those results. Actually, Washoe County going to Obama by around 3 points. Clark County going to Obama by around 15. So this would be a safe blue county to a likely blue county by only around 11 points. So that's definitely a significant shift. Also, in 2012, less of the counties, the margins were a lot less for Romney than they are for Trump. For instance, Mineral County right here, which in no way is a booming population center in Nevada, but Romney only won the county by around 11 points, whereas Trump won it by a much, much, much larger margin, somewhere around 20-something points. So definitely a huge shift. But again, we can look back at 2008 as well. Again to the state of Nevada. It's 2004. 2008, Washoe County and Clark County basically going to Obama by safe margins. So Nevada has shifted very, very rightward as the presidential election cycles continued. So ever since Obama, it's been getting more red. And if we look at 2004, of course, 2008, from 2004 to 2008, there was a huge shift to the left, but that seems to slowly be eroding away. Does that mean Nevada's trending as a red state? Absolutely not. This is just for the general election in particular. It looks like in the long term, Nevada is going to keep trending at least as a light blue state. Purple state, that's a little bit optimistic for Republicans, but it remains to be seen. So in 2004, the last time Nevada went to a Republican nominee for a presidential election, George W. Bush got 46.8% of the vote out of Clark County and 51% out of Washoe County. So these are similar to margins that we would expect from somebody who wins Nevada. Now, I think Trump can actually get a lot less of the vote out of Clark County just to win, and I mean just to barely win, because if Trump wins Nevada, he's going to barely win the state. So as of now, based on these predictions, I'm going to put Nevada in the tilt Trump column, and I could see this being very possible, as I don't know how realistically Joe Biden is going to be campaigning in the state of Nevada, and now obviously this can change, but for now I'm going to give the state of Trump to Nevada. Move on down to Arizona. We can go back to the 2016 election and look at Arizona. This was a likely red state in previous elections, but Arizona got uncomfortably close. Trump only winning it by less than 4 points. If we go to the county data, Maricopa County, Trump did significantly worse than Romney did, as we'll see, and McCain. Yuma County coming in very close, but actually, well, not improving, but Pima County as well, pretty abysmal showings. These are the most populous counties here in Arizona. So if we look at the shift, the change from 2012, Pima County shifted pretty heavily to the left. Santa Cruz County, Yuma County as well. So these are all counties that were a lot redder back in 2012 that are shifting more heavily to the Democrats. Maricopa County, most importantly, by far the most populous county in Arizona, home to Phoenix. Millions of people living here. A massive shift to the left. It's not so much that Democrats gained margins in this state as it is that Republicans lost votes. Donald Trump actually got 2,000 less votes than Mitt Romney, whereas Democrats increased theirs by 100,000. So this is super concerning for Republicans out of Arizona. Pima County as well. Donald Trump actually lost votes out of Pima County that Romney got back in 2012, and Clinton improved on Obama's vote count by around 23,000. So what does this mean going into 2020? Well, we can just look quickly back at 2012. Again, this state going to Romney by around 10 points. Again, I don't really like these numbers because New York Times doesn't really update their election numbers, so I actually think these are slightly off, but whatever. Let's just say it's around 9 or 10 points. Maricopa County, a likely red county in this scenario, going to Romney by around 12 points. And Yuma County, same thing, 12 points. So these counties almost go hand in hand, despite not really having all that much in common. Again, if we go back to 2016, we could see that these margins have shrunk significantly for Republicans. Pima County, same thing, almost in reach for Romney, but it didn't matter because at this time, Arizona was already going to be a Romney state anyway. This is not really a state in play. And of course, we look back at 2008, John McCain being from the state of Arizona, winning his home state by actually less than Romney did. He only won it by around 8 points. But again, if we look at Maricopa County, won it by 10 points. Yuma County, won it by a safe margin, basically. Pima County only lost Pima County by around 5 points or so. So this is a county, a state that's been trending heavily toward Democrats. Of course, we go back to 2004. Not that I'm going to be doing that all too much, but it's roughly always been basically a likely Republican state for the 21st century up until the 2016 election. So my final prediction is based on the fact that Biden is going to most likely struggle to campaign in a lot of these states, and the fact that he is overall a weaker candidate than Hillary was and in a weaker position. I know there are polls that say Biden is ahead now, but there were polls saying Hillary Clinton was ahead in Wisconsin by around 6 points on election day, and she ended up losing it by 0.7. So as of now, I'm still going to give the state of Donald Trump the state of Donald Trump. This is what happens when you record a video at 4 in the morning. I'm going to give the state of Arizona to Donald Trump by a tilt margin, similar to Nevada. I think Arizona is going to be closer, but I don't have enough compelling evidence to see the state actually flipping, even if there are polls with Biden 1 or 2 points ahead. And I know there's this one poll out recently that has Biden at 11 points ahead. Ignore it. It's an outlier. That's not even close to the margin that you're going to expect. And we can even look at the 2018 Senate results out of Arizona. And this is the race that everybody looks at and says, well, look, this is Arizona turning into a blue state. And when I do my swing state video on Arizona, I'm going to talk about the Senate race in more detail and compare the exit polls, because there is a lot of interesting takeaways from the exit polls. But in this case, and we're just going to detour from that real quick, Martha McSally only getting 47.6% of the vote and losing Maricopa County by around 5 points. Well, more like 4.2 points. And Kyrsten Sinema winning an outright majority at exactly 50%, overperforming in Pima County. Martha McSally actually did better in Pima County than Trump did, but of course in Maricopa County, Martha McSally underperformed and she got less votes. Kyrsten Sinema got 732,000 votes. If we look at the vote total for Donald Trump, that is just slightly under. I could see Maricopa County being that close. Now, I think overall, the vote totals from Arizona are going to increase as it is a growing Sunbelt state. The Phoenix suburbs are exploding in population. But I think in 2024, Arizona is definitely going to be, if not completely purple, probably light blue by that point. So that just seems to be the way it's trending, but for now we're going to give Arizona to Trump by a tilt margin. New Mexico, to no surprise, I'm going to put in the likely column. We don't have to go into this too much. New Mexico's not really in play. We can go back to 2016. Donald Trump lost the state by 8 points, but keep in mind there was a significant third party as well, Gary Johnson, who's from the state, as well as others like the Green Party and some other candidates. So honestly, I see the election results being more by wider margins than they were in 2016, because there's probably going to be less of a third-party vote. Maybe some Green Party vote from some of the more left-wing Democrats that are disenfranchised by Biden as the nominee, but I don't really think that's going to be a massive factor in the state. Again, we could go back. New Mexico, last time around, actually went to Obama by around 9 points, which would be a likely margin by my scale. And, of course, a safe margin, actually a very high likely margin, basically a safe margin in 2008. So, for now, based on the fact that 2016 and 2012 were likely and there'll be less third-party support, I think Donald Trump will increase his margins, but I also think when Joe Biden goes up against him, he will get over 50%. So that's me justifying why I'm going to put this in the likely column. Colorado is interesting. We could take a look at the state of Colorado right now. In 2016, Donald Trump lost the state of Colorado by around 5 points, and the areas he lost significantly were, of course, the Denver suburbs, which if you're going to win statewide, you have to win the Denver suburbs. You have to have larger margins here in El Paso County, Colorado Springs, a heavily evangelical right-wing county in Colorado, and Fort Collins. These areas, you need to up the margins. If we look at the change from 2012, Pueblo County went pretty decently for the Republicans this time around, although they actually only got 46% of the vote. If Biden had, say, been in the race, he probably would have gotten a bit over that, because Biden is more liked than Hillary, but he has his own problems. He seems to be, to put it nicely, age seems to be getting the best of him. He's making a lot of gaffes. And the Democratic base is not as excited about Biden as they were for Hillary. And that says something, because Hillary was not exciting to the Democratic base, at least a very, very sizable portion of it. But again, if we look at these results, El Paso County only going slightly more for Trump. But again, where it really matters, Denver, the Denver suburbs, going more to the left. We can go back at 2012. The margin was around 5 points, just like it was in 2016. And then, of course, in 2008, the margin in Colorado was nearly 10 points. It was around 9 points. So for now, I'm going to put Colorado in the lean Biden camp, which means it'll probably go to Biden again by around 5-6 points. I could see as high as 7, honestly, because Colorado has been trending more to the Democrats as of late. So now we get to the all-important state of Texas. Now, a lot of the importance on Texas has been overhyped by the mainstream media because it is interesting, it is exciting to see that Texas could be a battleground in 2020. And I know there are a lot of polls now that say that's the case, that Trump's only narrowly winning Texas, but I don't really see that going to fruition. So we can go back to 2016 and take a look at the results there. Donald Trump won the state by around 9 points. If we go by the counties, he still was able to win Tarrant County by single digits, and he was able to win Denton and Collin by around 20 points, give or take. Harris County, he was able to get 41.6% of the vote. Of course, in Travis County, he didn't even break 30, which is pretty bad for even a Republican. And of course, the Austin suburbs definitely got a lot bluer. If we look at the change from 2012, the areas that really matter, the population centers, went way to the left. That's why Trump only won a, seemingly deep red state of Texas by 9 points. It's because those areas have trended more to the Democrats. So, for instance, we can look at Travis County. Travis County last time was not nearly as blue as it was in 2016. Obama got 60% of the vote. Hillary nearly got 66% of the vote. Romney got 36.2%. Trump got only 27% of the vote out of Travis County. So an abysmal showing there. Same with Dallas. Same with Fort Worth. These are areas that are going way more towards the Democrats. In fact, Trump actually lost 3,000 votes compared to Romney in Tarrant County, which is very bad news for Republicans going forward. If that trend continues, they're going to lose Tarrant County, and which means that they're going to lose the state of Texas as a whole. Denton County going a lot more for the Democrat, Hillary Clinton. Of course, we see that in 2012, the Romney margin was heavily eroded from nearly 65% to only 57%. Hillary Clinton gained, but not nearly as much as Trump lost. So that kind of helps him a little bit. He still won it by 20 points, but these used to be deep Republican suburbs, but they're also one of the fastest growing counties in the country. Of course, we go to Collin County, same story. Trump increases his vote margin, but Hillary increases it by more here in Collin County. That's actually not the case in Denton. Hillary increases her vote count by around 30,000. But Trump almost keeps up the pace, not quite there. He does increase his vote share, unlike in Tarrant County. Harris County almost went to Romney in 2012 by literally 0.1%. That's how close it was to flipping. And if we look at the totals overall, Trump again lost votes in Harris County, but Hillary increased hers by over 100,000. Trump lost around 40,000% of the vote. So Harris County taking a massive shift to the left in this case. And of course the suburbs around it. We can go back to 2012. This is when Texas was still safe red, going to Mitt Romney by a safe margin. Again, we could see how close Harris County was by literally 0.1%. That's the difference. Nearly 1,000 vote difference. And Romney almost flipped the county. And you can see how red Collin and Denton County are. These are the population centers. These are the parts of Texas that really matter. And that's why it's so important for Donald Trump to probably stop in a few of these areas. It wouldn't hurt. And of course, we could look at 2008 real quick. At McCain's margins here in Texas, doing much better in Denton, Collin, Tarrant County, but this is also a high likely margin. McCain only winning it by 12 points. So my final prediction for Texas now is I think it's still going to be in the likely margin. The way it's looking now, Trump will probably win it by less than he did in 2016, maybe 7 points, which is basically on the cusp of a high lean, but we're going to give it to him anyway. So we're going to go to Nebraska's 2nd district. This one we won't really talk about too much. This is probably going to be a lean Trump. One of the reasons for that, if we actually look at 2018 real quick, we can look at the House races as well, if they'll load. And we could see that Nebraska's 2nd district, despite being a moderate blue wave, still holding on to the Republicans. This is also a district that Romney won back in 2012 and Trump won as well. So I still see this going to Donald Trump by a lean margin. Minnesota is an interesting state. If we look back at 2016, this is the closest a Republican has ever gotten to winning the state of Minnesota since 1984. I believe I'm right when I say it. Yeah, since 1984. Hillary only got a 1.5% advantage over Donald Trump in the county. So this is in the state. So this is a super close margin for a state that's been blue since 1984 consistently. And since not even 1984, 1972. This has been a blue state since 1972. 1972 is the last time it went red for Nixon. We look at the trends, Minnesota, especially rural Minnesota, going heavily to Donald Trump. The only areas that get more blue are, of course, Hennepin County, Ramsey County. This is basically the Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the suburbs around there, all heading a bit more for Hillary Clinton back in 2016, but the rest of the state going heavily to the right, in some cases even 10 or almost a 20-point swing in some of these counties. So if we look at 2012, a little bit of a different story. Obama won the state fairly comfortably by around 7 points, which I guess is pretty normal for Minnesota because these rural areas and the suburbs around Minneapolis are still fairly Republican. But when you get out, there's also rural Democrats. They still existed at this time. Rural white working class Democrats that went for Obama by around 30 points here in St. Louis County and also in the southern portion of the state. Pretty big margins there. 2014, again, very similar margin. Obama winning Minnesota by around 10 points. He actually got more rural counties. No surprise there. He lost some ground in 2012. We look back at 2004. John Kerry still wins it by, albeit close to the, little close for comfort there, but still around 4 points. So, of course, these rural areas are still a lot more red, but there's still rural blue counties as well. So overall, I still think the state of Minnesota is probably going to go to Joe Biden by a lean margin. I think he's actually going to do better there than Hillary Clinton, given that Donald Trump has only gotten 44.9, basically 45% of the vote, which is actually about the same that Romney got. So I could see Biden winning the state of Minnesota by 3 or 4 points. Again, if you go look at the popular vote for the 2016 House races in Minnesota, at the same time it went to Hillary by 1.5%. The House Democrats beat the Republicans in the popular vote by, I believe, 4 points. You could fact check that if you want. I think it's something like that. But they did significantly better. All right, so the state of Iowa, if we go back to 2016, of course, Trump won Iowa by a larger margin than he won Texas. He won it by around 9-ish points or so, which is about the same as Texas. I think it's actually slightly more when you do the math. But if you look at the change from 2012, massive shift to the right. Iowa is one of those strange states that will swing largely one way and then largely another, as we'll look in a second. This is a state that swung from George W. Bush barely winning it to Obama essentially landsliding in the state. So this is one of those crazy states that there's no explanation for. But all of these rural counties going to Trump by at least 15 points or even more. So a lot of these counties going heavily to him, giving him such an outstanding victory. But also Hillary heavily underperformed here as well. She only got 41.7% of the vote. I think Iowa's going to be slightly closer this time around. But I still think Trump's going to win it overall. Again, if we look back at 2012, Obama wins Iowa by around 6 points or so. Does a lot better in these rural counties that went heavily to Trump up here in the north. And of course, we can go back to 2008. This is 2004, 2008, where Obama won the state of Iowa by 10 points. So we go from 10 points to winning by around 6 points to Democrats losing by 10 points. That's a massive, massive shift to the right. I still see Iowa as likely for Donald Trump in 2020. And the polling backs it up. The RCP average has Trump up by around 8 points in Iowa currently. The state of Wisconsin is going to be a state that's going to be razor thin either way you look at it. If we go back to 2016, this was one of those states that Donald Trump won by only 0.7%. And the reason he did that, if we look at the trends, he did heavily better than Romney did in the rural areas. These are all areas in western Wisconsin that formerly were Democratic areas. These are very white working class areas, rural areas that went heavily to Trump back in 2016. And it was just enough, coupled with the fact that Milwaukee County barely made a further shift to the left. This was just enough to put Trump over the top in Wisconsin. But the question now becomes, is it possible again? We look at 2012. We're just going to look at all the elections real quickly. Romney lost the state by around 6 points or so. So, again, look how blue these rural western counties are compared to how red, even if they are light red, but they're still red, they are in 2016. Then, of course, in 2008, Barack Obama absolutely crushed McCain in Wisconsin, specifically rural Wisconsin. All of these counties that are blue now, we can look now. Some of those blue counties are safe red counties in 2016. So that just goes to show you how much Wisconsin has shifted heavily to the right. Now, it doesn't always mean that shift's going to continue, but based on polling as well being really close here in Wisconsin, I still think Trump is going to win Wisconsin by a a tilt margin. I think he'll probably win it by around 2 points, basically the highest end of a tilt margin that's possible. The next state we're going to look at is Michigan. If we go back to 2016, Trump only won Michigan by 0.3%. If we look at the results here, and the change, Wayne County, which is where Detroit made a shift to the right. Donald Trump increased his margins there. Hillary decreased Obama's margins there, so that was a huge factor. And also a massive factor was the massive rural shift in these areas. The massive rural shift to the right in rural Michigan, minus this one county for some reason. But everywhere else, massive shifts. The population centers went slightly more blue around Kent County, Grand Rapids, this area, but everywhere else making massive shifts to the right. Now, do I think that these shifts to the right, again, look, this is a state that Obama won by 10 points in 2012, at 17 points in 2008. Now, do I think these shifts to the right are enough? It's possible, but I think as of right now, based on the polling, how far ahead Joe Biden is, and I'm doing this based on what I see right now, I would put Michigan in the tilt Biden column, but I think either way, Michigan's going to be decided by a point or so. So that basically has a pickup for Trump in Nevada and a flip away from Trump in Michigan, which is very possible. There's usually presidents, especially incumbents, sometimes lose states, and they might pick up some other states. If we look at 2004 real quick, 2000 to 2004, Bush won the state of New Hampshire, but he lost Iowa and New Mexico. These were, of course, all close, but then we go to 2004. He loses New Hampshire, but he trades that off for Iowa and New Mexico and does better off in the Electoral College. Not saying that those past elections are reflective of that, but it tends to be the case most of the time. So if we go down to Ohio, this one we're not really going to discuss much about. I think this is going to be a likely red state. Polling seems to indicate that Trump is heavily up in the state of Ohio. We can just look at how much the state has shifted to the right. We can even look at the 2018 midterms. Of course, we can look at the governor's race. And again, don't think that midterms are very indicative of overall presidential politics, because they're not. But they do mean something when during a blue wave year, Ohio still retains a Republican identity. And again, we can look back at the overall results. So Trump won Ohio by around 8 points. If we look at not the size, but the overall counties, improving massively in the eastern part of the state, and of course all these rural areas upping the margins. The change from 2012, almost every county went more toward Donald Trump, except Franklin County, where Columbus is, going a little bit more for Hillary, Delaware County, and these other counties in the southwest. But the rest of the state going much more heavily to Trump. I still think this state is going to be a likely Trump state. Probably a little bit narrower, probably around 7 points or so, but it's still going to be a Trump state. We're going to move on down to Florida. Again, we can look at, that's Virginia. We can look at the 2016 results from Florida. Donald Trump ending up with 48.6% of the vote out of Florida, as opposed to Hillary's 47.4%. I don't actually know if those votes are up to date. I think they are. But either way, heavy shifts for Trump in rural areas. A little bit smaller, because Florida is always one of those states that's going to be really, really close, basically any way you look at it, because while you have large minority populations in Florida and huge urban centers, down in the southeast with Miami, Palm Beach, all that, you also have a lot of seniors that come down here from the north that tend to vote more conservative, that kind of keep the state anchored for Republicans. So in a way, it is the culmination of all these factors that makes Florida the eternal purple state. At least it has been a purple state since 2000. But on the state level, it's definitely way more Republican. If we go back to the 2012 election, Obama won the state by 0.9%, which is actually somewhat of a decent margin, considering Florida gets so close. And of course, in 2008, Obama won the state of Florida by over 2 percentage points, 2.5 basically, which is a really good margin for a swing state that was formerly a red state back in 2004. So, for now, with polling in Florida being interesting, because the polls originally had Trump up, now they have Biden up due to the whole coronavirus handling. Americans tend to have short memories when it comes to things overall, and I think that the trend of Biden doing better with older voters is not going to be permanent this time around. I think that is temporary. I think when the crisis of coronavirus kind of fades out of the American psyche as things tend to get more back to normal, as the situation gets under control, I think Trump's overall approval among older voters is going to increase. So I still see Trump winning the state of Florida, but I think it's going to be by a tilt margin. Now, these are different from my predictions in the past. Before I gave Trump Florida by a lean margin, Arizona by a lean margin, things like that. But of course, things change, and polling data seems to indicate that these states are going to be closer than I previously thought. But anyway, Florida going to Trump. So far, the race is at 244 Donald Trump, Biden 223. So now we go to the state of Georgia. This we won't talk too much about, but Georgia is going to go likely Donald Trump. It might even be redder than Texas this time around. The RCP average has Donald Trump up by 8 points, I believe. It's 7.5. So that's really good for a state that almost went, if we look back at the 2018 election, this is a state that almost went to Democrat Stacey Abrams in the gubernatorial race. This was a state that Brian Kemp only won by 1.4 percentage points. So we went from a state that had a super close race to, according to the polling, Donald Trump effectively still winning the state overall by a likely margin. Now we can just quickly gloss over the trends here in Georgia, because the video is getting a lot longer than most of my other videos are. But we can quickly go over the trends. The Atlanta suburbs going heavily to the left, whereas the rural areas trending more and more Republican. If we go back to And by the way, Trump wins by 5 points in 2016. If we go back to 2012, Romney wins the state of Georgia pretty comfortably at around 8 points. And of course, in 2008, actually a little bit more blue this time, McCain wins by around 5 points. So that's effectively the same margin that Trump won it by, mostly because McCain lost a lot of these rural counties that probably have sizable black populations that are going to be, if they turn red, are going to be light red anyway, because white voters in Georgia tend to vote nearly 73% for the Republicans. So if their turnout is higher, these counties will go to Republicans. If we look at 2016, there's way less of these blue counties here in the South and across the middle here of the state. So Georgia is going to go to Donald Trump by a likely margin in 2020. North Carolina is going to be close. I'm debating if it's going to be closer than 2016 or if it's going to be further, because here's something interesting. So if we look at the state of North Carolina, Donald Trump gets 2.36 million votes out of the state to Hillary's 2.189. So he gets basically almost 50%. She gets 46.2. If we go back to 2012 real quick, Obama gets 1.78, so he actually gets slightly less votes than Hillary Clinton, but Donald Trump nearly increases his vote total by 100,000. It's around 90,000 votes. So Donald Trump obviously beating Hillary in terms of Republican turnout. Republican turnout is much higher than Democratic turnout. And of course, if we go back to 2008, that's when the last time North Carolina went to Obama. This was a state that was a red state since the 1960s, presidentially speaking, but flipped along with Virginia to give Obama his landslide victory in the Electoral College. But this is a state that only went blue by less than a point. But since then, it's actually trended more towards the Republicans in recent years. Again, we can look at the rural areas going heavily to Trump and the urban areas and the suburban areas to an extent flocking to the Democrats. So I still think that North Carolina is probably going to be in the 3-point range for Donald Trump. The polls are going to have Biden up ahead just like they had Hillary up ahead up to Election Day, but ultimately I think Trump's still going to win the state by around the same margin, because I think Biden is going to do a little better. He'll get like 47%, and I think Trump will get around 50 out of the state. Virginia, we're not going to talk too much about this one. I've talked about Virginia in my Swing State Series video, so if you want to go check that out, you can look at my video entitled something like How's Virginia going to trend in 2020? This is going to go likely blue. This will go to Biden by around 7.5%. I'm not going to go into all the results really, but Trump lost the state by 5 points. He did worse in a lot of the urban areas than Romney and McCain did, and they lost it by a sizable margin too. But at the end of the day, Virginia seems to be flocking towards establishment Democrats overall. So I think that's going to be the trend, and that's going to continue. So Biden's going to win the state by around 7.5. Pennsylvania is a really, really close state we're going to have to look at. By the way, Trump has actually won the presidency at this point with 275 electoral votes to Biden's 236. But we're not finished yet. If we look at the 2016 election results, Pennsylvania was within 0.7 percentage points. So definitely within a point, only a 0.7% difference. These are the areas where Hillary Clinton overperformed. She underperformed. She underperformed in all the blue areas of the state, essentially, minus maybe Allegheny County. But, and again, if we look at the change from 2012, a massive shift to the right in all of these rural Pennsylvania counties, minus Center County. This is because it's a college county. There's a massive college there, Penn State, so that's obviously going to help the Democrats out. But everywhere else in the state, Republicans doing sizably better. Only area where they lack are the Philadelphia suburbs. The Philadelphia suburbs actually, Chester County, for instance, was actually Republican back in 2012. As we see here, barely though. And then, of course, in 2016, going to Hillary Clinton by a pretty sizable margin, almost 10 points. But everywhere else outsized that victory and ultimately gave the state to Donald Trump. Again, the 3 counties that flipped from the last time were Luzerne County, Erie County, and Northampton County. These were all counties that were blue back in 2012 and then flipped to Donald Trump, basically giving him the state. So, of course, Luzerne County, one of the bigger counties out of, I think it's around the same as Erie County population-wise. I'm not sure, but it looks like it has around the same amount of votes. But, again, Romney getting 57,000 votes out of the county. Trump getting 78,000. Hillary only 52,000. So Hillary underperformed Obama by nearly 10,000 votes in Luzerne County, and it seems to only be trending more Republican. In 2018, Luzerne County went red for Lou Barletta in the Senate as well. Now that, of course, is his home county. He was the former mayor of Hazleton, which is a small city in Luzerne County that made headlines back during the Bush administration for trying to make its own laws on immigration. And Lou Barletta was the Republican mayor of that town, kind of making that stand. So he was running for the Senate in 2018. He won his home county. That makes sense, by around 7 points or so. So I think Luzerne County is definitely going to go to Trump again, considering it went for him by such a massive margin, basically 19 points. Erie County is definitely going to be a toss-up here. Trump only winning it by around less than 2 points. And, of course, we have Northampton County, which Trump won by around 0.3-ish, maybe 0.4. 3 or 4 points. So, overall, and Bucks County could definitely be a pickup for Trump, I think, in 2020. Because in 2016, in this same election year, Pat Toomey won this county in the Senate race by around a point or so as well. So, we don't really have to look at 2008. I think that Pennsylvania, and the last 3 polls that are out from Pennsylvania actually have Trump ahead by around a point or tied with Biden. So to give Trump the benefit of the doubt, I'm going to give him Pennsylvania by a tilt margin. Again, Pennsylvania at the highest is going to be around 1.5%. This is going to be a state that's still going to be razor thin, like Michigan, any way that it goes. Up to New Hampshire. Again, this is another state that's going to be very, very, very close, and everybody's going to be watching this state in 2020. We can look back at the 2016 election results. New Hampshire only going to Hillary Clinton by 0.3%, and the margin around 2,000 votes or so. So again, we could look at the counties. All these counties are super either light blue or light red because New Hampshire is a swing state, and these places get really close. So in 2012, Obama won New Hampshire by around 6 points. In 2008, Obama won it by 10. Of course, we look at the trends. All of New Hampshire went more to the right, but it wasn't enough for Trump this time. And the polling out of New Hampshire actually has, and the latest pollings, as in April of 2020, has Trump actually winning New Hampshire, which is bad because even when Trump came this close, Hillary was still way ahead of him in the polls. We're going to put the state of New Hampshire as a tilt for Donald Trump. That leaves just the state of Maine at large. So far, Maine at large, Biden is probably going to win by a higher lean margin. We can look back at 2016. Maine is a lot closer than it should have been for a blue state. But ultimately, it was still around a 2.5% difference. I think a little bit more. It might have been 3.1 or something like that. And of course, we look at the shifts. All of Maine shifted to the right. But I think overall, Biden is better than Hillary. And he probably, I don't know if he'll campaign in Maine, so I could be wrong. But for now, I'm going to put Maine at large as lean and Maine second as likely as it went in 2016. So that's my prediction. Trump at 300 electoral votes to Biden's 238. So Biden doing a little better than Hillary. Trump doing slightly worse than he did last time. But it all remains to be seen if this is actually the election map. But this is what I see happening as of today. Trump losing Michigan, but trading that off for gains in New Hampshire and Nevada. And barely holding on to the state of Arizona. But if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and watch my other prediction videos. on Senate gubernatorial races, and I will probably post my next Trump versus Biden video in May. So this has actually been a really long video, but thank you guys for sticking around that have, and I'll see you in the next one.